Holy smokes. If you thought you were going into the weekend nice and calm and easy, you were mistaken. The Carolina Hurricanes, Colorado Avalanche, and Chicago Blackhawks pull off a three-way blockbuster, and we're going to talk about it right now here on the latest presented by CCM Hockey. It's Dennis Bernstein. I'm David Pagnotta. And DB, holy cow. Mikko Rantanen, Taylor Hall to Carolina. Jack Drury, Martin Necas, a second-round pick and a fourth-round pick go to Colorado, and Chicago ends up with a third-round pick, their own, in this coming draft, and they eat half of Rantanen's contract. Your initial reaction to this one?
Well, they're going to ruin my Friday night dinner plans. At least they were creative about it. So, stunning. You would think that they would find the money to sign Rantanen in Colorado, and maybe they do. Maybe he goes there and plays out his contract and re-signs, but that never happens, Dave. So it's a stunning move. Now, when you look at the numbers, Dave, there's not much difference this season between the production of Rantanen and Necas. There really isn't. I think it's
9
8
points.
points or something. 9
9
points. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's not. Look, now Mikko's the better goal scorer, and he's certainly a different type of player. Speed and skill from Necas, net front presence from the Moose. So just a stunning move. And look, Carolina's serious, and they didn't think they could get over with Necas as a lead guy. So they decided to go to Rantanen, but a stunning move from the Avs standpoint. And now, Dave, I think the bigger question is, what are the other dominoes that fall? Does this spur activity before the Four Nations, or is this just kind of a one-off? Again, a stunning move by all three teams.
There's been a lot of talk in the last 2 to 3 days around the National Hockey League about some big impact type moves. Rantanen discussion, JT Miller in Vancouver. There's a lot of noise coming out of Pittsburgh on what may happen there. They're one of the teams that have kicked the tires on JT Miller. We know that the Boston Bruins were part of this. Carolina also part of it. They had to make a decision. Do we go all in for JT Miller, or is Mikko Rantanen the better approach? And they're taking a chance because he is an unrestricted free agent this July. He is looking for $14 million per year on a long-term contract. So this is a big risk that Carolina is taking. They took a risk last season in bringing in Jake Gensel. He ends up in Tampa Bay, signing on July 1. We'll obviously wait and see what happens here with Rantanen, who has 64 points on the season. And like you said earlier, Martin Necas, 55 points. He was the leader in Carolina on that club offensively. So, from Carolina's perspective, they load up. They add Taylor Hall for some secondary scoring in their mid-six, something they were looking for. And at the same time, from Colorado's perspective, they free up a little over $1 million in cap space. They're not done by any sounds of it. They're looking around, and I know there's all kinds of, well, what about Sidney Crosby? We'll see. I mean, I did a radio hit in Calgary this morning saying that if Colorado's going to end up moving Rantanen, they fully just accepted their fate and said, you know what, we're not going to run for a Stanley Cup. I did not anticipate Marty Necas being the primary return in this one. Where does this put Carolina now, in your estimation and in your opinion, in terms of the top-tier teams in the Eastern Conference? And are they one of the top cup contenders now?
Well, they were a shade below, Dave. Like this team that was playing, and they got hot here recently, but they were a tick below the Washingtons. And it's crazy to even say Washington, and the Floridas and the Torontos. But this puts them right up there because, again, what did they need? They needed a big physical net front presence guy. They have enough of speed and skill with this, but that. So now the tandem of Svechnikov and Rantanen, that's going to scare teams offensively. That's the one thing about Carolina. They never scare teams offensively. Now you might be actually scared of Carolina in the postseason. But I'll say this about Carolina, Dave. They didn't want to pay Gensel his money.
Yeah.
Are they really going to pay him $14 million a year in Carolina?
Right.
I have my doubts about that one. If that's going to be the number, it's going to be a big challenge for ownership to swallow that type of contract going forward. But again, I think it improves Carolina. And I think the thing about Colorado, Dave, is they have to solve the 2C problem. And this doesn't do it for them. Right. And maybe they're waving a white flag a little bit because I think pound for pound, you would rather have a Rantanen than Necas. Not that they're, moving off of this, because I want to see if McFarland makes any moves behind this move to bolster the middle, because that was the flaw in this team, not necessarily a winger.
Right. And they've got some cap flexibility. They have to figure out, first of all, what's going on with Gabe Landeskog. Is he coming back? Is he not coming back? They need some clarity on that situation. We certainly hope the best for Val Nichushkin, but he's, out as well now, considered week to week. So we have to, they have to wait and see, and we have to wait and see what's going to happen there with Carolina. Um, Shifting a little bit just to JT Miller. I know Vancouver's been the talk of the town, but Carolina shifts. They go after Rantanen, and that's no longer an option now for Vancouver in terms of where they could possibly move JT Miller. Um, we heard that Vancouver was really engaged in discussions again today. Maybe that brings something forward, but is it the Rangers? Is it Boston? Is it Pittsburgh? Does he go home? Does this change now without having Carolina in the mix? In your opinion, does this change Vancouver's stance? And maybe it certainly gives them one less option. So, the ball's not necessarily in their court at this point.
It's not. And if you trade JT Miller in season, now here's the thing: can you get a comparable player back? Is
Right.
Necas a comparable player for Rantanen? Maybe he's a couple low, but if you trade JT Miller off this team, I assume the return's not going to be as good. But having said that, Necas is a pretty good return for a walkaway free agent who you may have not signed. So with respect to look, I just still think that JT Miller, it goes. I think what they should do in Vancouver, Dave, is it's been a bad season. Accept that. Say that, okay, nothing's going to change in the next 32 games. Not because of the players and not because of the strife in the room. I don't think Thatcher Demko is going to be 100% all season. And if you don't have 100% Thatcher Demko, I don't think they're a dangerous team. So I would wait. I would be more patient than Colorado and Carolina was on JT Miller, because I think you need, because that player has term, you have to get a comparable return for this player. I don't think you can do it in season. So if I was Alvin and Rutherford, I would wait. But the one caveat there, Dave, is Jim Rutherford is not a patient man.
Let's see if activity picks up in Vancouver. Let's see if activity picks up league-wide after this blockbuster goes down. Rantanen and Hall are now members of the Hurricanes. Necas and Drury, they're in Denver, part of the Avalanche, and the third-round pick ends up in Chicago. And it sounds like Colorado's got more irons in the fire. Chicago's certainly working on a few other things.
Sure.
Let's see what happens with Vancouver, with the Rangers, with the Penguins. A lot of activity picking up. We will have it all for you here on The Latest, presented by CCM Hockey. That's Dennis. I'm Dave. Have a good night.